In this episode, I want to talk about being pretty, having grown up very, very ugly, and just what that has meant to me, what I see it as now, the way I've been bullied for it or lack thereof, and just my vanity, my fear beyond what the industry convinces you about yourself while you age, and beyond just desire that some of us feel to occasionally in your 30s or 40s get Botox to feel younger. Let's get into it. Hi and welcome to Notes from a Desi Girl. Let's just say it. I grew up ugly. I grew up very ugly or maybe mediocre. And you could say that, oh, but you were a kid. Kids are always cute. You could say it like that. But teenagers are often going through things and they are a work in progress, right? A lot of us are late bloomers and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. I'm a late bloomer. Growing up, though, I was quite ugly for a lot of different reasons. And I mean ugly in the conventional sense, but also in the sense that my features didn't make sense. They needed time to marinate, I suppose. There was no concept of sunscreen or skincare much growing up. That's fine. I hated going in the harsh sun. The mornings and the evening sun is fine, but I hated going in the harsh sun, and I had to go anywhere to the kirana dukan or in the school for like sports time or sports period or something. I hated it, but I guess that makes you very tan. And I know I'm not exactly Miss Melanin right now because I now use sunscreen and I stay out of the sun that I hate. But back then, I was very tan. Not to mention, my skin was so oily. We all know dark skin and oily skin like that is ammunition for people around you, especially in Indian society. No one hates brown skin more than Indians do, especially the Indian aunties. Even if they are brown, dark skinned themselves. It's crazy. Like, dark skin is the most sought after in developed countries. It's so beautiful to be dark and brown, but it's hated in India. So I was dark skinned a lot more than I am right now. My hair was oily because I wasn't allowed to wash it more than once a week, which is another story that I'll get into later. My eyes were terrible, tired all the time, and had these deep set dark circles. There's a bit of a story there, but I'll briefly talk about it because I used to rub my eyes a lot. I went to the doctor last year or even 2 years ago just to get them checked up because my eyes are still scratchy, especially when I wake up, scratchier than normal. And they go and tell me you have very, very dry eyes, and these oil glands in your eyes are almost gone. We could still revive them if you do this, but they are so gone that you might need injections to fix it later on, which is an extreme measure, but that's how it is. And I didn't know why exactly, but this morning I was thinking about it as I put my dry eye drops. I used to cry a lot as a kid and I used to rub my eyes a lot. It's not that I'm an emotional person and that I just can't help but cry, but I used to be beaten a lot for no reason. There's two ways, right? If you're a very bad kid and if you need to be disciplined, then you might be beaten for that. And whether or not you should beat someone for discipline is a different conversation. But being beaten for no reason is a different category than that of discipline. And I used to be beaten multiple times a week, if not a day. And I realized early on that if I just grit my teeth and fought it, like, no, I'm not going to be affected by whatever is happening to me because I'm strong, then the hits would keep coming until I cried. So I was like forced to cry, and I realized that the quicker I cry, but not just out of thin air, after having received some hits, so it looks like I lost because that's what it was about in hindsight, then the hits would slow down 5 minutes earlier than they normally would. And so all that crying, all of that scratching my eyes, and I would just push my eyeballs into deeper into the socket, and I had these deep set dark circles, oily skin, sometimes pimples, I still have them, oily hair, dark skin. All of that was ammunition to be bullied by Indian aunties. The Indian auntie bullying is such a vast topic. If that was the only thing my channel was about, I could still talk about it every week. But that's not all my channel is about. I did an episode on it last week. I might do more as it comes to me. Now, there are two things in Indian society. One, you are boxed up quite a lot. You can only be the one thing or the other. And I didn't care much about beauty or looking good because that kind of beauty was always associated with vanity, with being dumb. You can't be both beautiful and smart. That's what the precedent was growing up, even though it's a dumb precedent. So I was like, I'd rather be smart. And I was. That is the one thing that was ironclad set in stone about me growing up. I was smart. I was always the top scorer in a batch of 250 students in my school. I was good at drawing. I think I still am. People tell me that you draw well. And I am trying to do something with it, although I'm not very consistent. But I go back to it. I love to draw. If nothing else, I could draw for the rest of my life, right? But there's a lot of other things I'm doing right now. I like to sing. I like to play the piano for fun. And I've been told that you're fine, you're not bad. Just as a hobby, I didn't join any classes or anything. So my academics were perfect. My extracurriculars were perfect. No one could ever nitpick me on that. No one could ever say a word to me about that. Not just random Indian aunties, but these aunties, not just the aunties like down the street, I mean, but these classmates of mine who, and we weren't like rivals of each other necessarily, but we had to keep up appearances because our mothers cared. We could see our mothers kind of proud or not proud depending on how we scored. And at times when I would score good grades, some of my classmates' mothers, who themselves were quite aloof and chill, their mothers were not. And they used to look at me on open day or on like parents' day report day. They used to be fuming, looking at me like, how did she score? How is this possible? And they had nothing to put me down from except my appearance. My ugliness was ammunition for them, and for years, that's all I heard. In fact, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't even see my dark circles. I still don't, because it's like, what do you mean? It's just me. This is what I see I don't see the dark circles. Like, what are you talking about? So it didn't like jab at me or anything. It was just background noise, but it was there. When I grew up, however, there was this transitionary period where my puberty was kind of coming to an end, and sometimes people started saying that, oh, you look nice. I always thought it was a prank. And Indian boys especially, they're so mean, right? They were so mean to me. And a few times, like this, the first time this happened, a boy came to me, like a friend of mine in school. He's like, I really like a girl. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Because usually I was friends with a girl who was very pretty, and I love being friends, which was so funny, right? And a lot of the times guys would talk to me like, hey, can I talk to her, or can you, I don't know, get me her number, ask her or something. So I was used to that. And so this one time, I think it was in 6th grade. No, it was in 8th grade. I don't remember. It's a blur. This guy comes in like, I really like someone. I'm like, okay. She's so smart and she's so funny and she's pretty. And I'm like, okay. And then after like 5 minutes of this back and forth where I was dumb and didn't know where he was going, he looks and he's like, it's you. And I was like, oh. And for like that guy was still nice. He really liked me, I guess. That's a different incident. But a few times later on in the years, like in my teenage years or even sometimes early 20s, a boy or a friend of mine has told me that, and I knew exactly where it was going when he said, I really like a girl, you know her really well, she is smart and pretty. And I'm like, okay. And then they're like, it's you. And I'm like, oh. And 3 seconds after, I have no reaction, or I say that, hey, I have a crush on someone else, or I'm not allowed to have a boyfriend, so nothing can happen here. They would be like, ha, yeah, that was just a prank. You thought I really liked you. What the heck? And that's how they do it. It's always a prank, right? Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but that's how they go about it. So every time someone started calling me Phuiri later on, I was like, oh, whatever. Things changed, however, when I turned 22 and I got a chance to finally start my life. I escaped the toxic Indian society and the place I grew up, and I went to Belgium to do a master's. I didn't much care about the master's, I just cared about being out and starting my life. It was the best thing that has ever happened to me, and that is why Belgium, even with all its flaws as a country, will have a special place in my heart, because it is my not first, but second home. It is home to me. Home is India, because there were a lot of good things growing up, but home is Belgium. And for the first time, I had this blank slate, like no social baggage, no nothing. I could just be myself, and I started making friends. I started saying yes to everything just because I wanted to meet people. For the first time, people just liked me for who I was, and a lot of girls, especially in the bathrooms of the bars that I used to go to, they were like, "You're very pretty, and I love your eyebrows." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I love your hair, it's so glossy." And I don't know if you've experienced, but what you experience in the bathrooms of a bar are the strongest moments you will experience. A woman being there for another woman. People started telling me, "Oh, you're pretty, you're cute." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess the way I look is not ammunition for anyone anymore." So that was a stark contrast to life as I knew it from back in India. A few times when I traveled to India, though, now that I was pretty, I guess, I would still, like, occasionally from stress get the occasional, I get like acne or a pimple or something. And this one time, a friend of mine convinced me to do a mask, like coconut oil and sugar, and let's just put it on. And her skin wasn't acne prone, and I didn't know mine was. And oh my god, my skin got destroyed from it for weeks after. I got so many pimples until I couldn't understand why. And then I googled one day and I understood the concept of pore clogging. And I don't wear a lot of makeup. I didn't wear it at the time either because I don't like the way makeup feels on my skin. And then you have to wash it off at the end of the day. But when I got like pimples or something, even if they went away after 2 weeks, the hyperpigmentation lasted me for at least a year. Like that's what it's like with brown skin. And these aunties would still comment on me, my blood relatives would still like, "Why did you have a pimple? Why do you have that? What is wrong with you? It looks horrible." And I was like, wow, being ugly or having one facet of your looks be not ideal is still to this day being nitpicked as part of my appearance, huh? And all of these girls, these women, these amazing female friends, or just strangers in Belgium who told me that they liked my eyebrows or they liked how long my eyelashes were. I was like, "Thank you." And they liked my black hair. I was like, "What do you mean? Black hair is everywhere." But in Belgium, in Leuven at that time, it was not. It was rare. And they liked my black hair, which made me like my black hair. I was like, I guess I like the way I look. I'm fine with it, right? So it took me a while to accept that someone calling me pretty or that, "Hey, you look good," is not a prank. In Belgium, they don't really do that. They just say it like it is. They are nicer than the people I'd known growing up. And so I started accepting it. In fact, I started holding on to it because now that I was pretty and the few times in life where my skin didn't have a lot of dark spots, if I was in the presence of an Indian auntie in India, they had nothing to talk about. They had nothing to bully me about or nitpick about because not only was my academics perfect, I went there on a scholarship, I got a full fee, like, handled by the university. I barely had to pay. I had to pay for housing, that's it. So the fee that I paid in Leuven, or lack thereof, was less than the fee I paid for my government college in India. And usually government colleges have a lower fee. So that was a moment of pride for me, which means people didn't have anything to nitpick me about. Not my intelligence, not my grades, and not my appearance anymore. That was a first. And I liked not being looked at like a hawk, like what is wrong with I liked not having a pimple on my skin that was being stared at instead of people just looking me in the eyes and talking to me normally. That was the first time I felt so free from my appearance having refined over the years that I started associating with it for fear of not being bullied. And I liked what I saw in the mirror. Now fast forward to my first jobs. Being good looking in the STEM industry is not exactly an advantage. Men, you would think that men are not jealous of women, right? But I've seen, not all obviously, but a lot of men were so jealous that I was doing good work that they attributed it to, "Oh, just because she's cute, she's getting special treatment," which was not true. I was the only woman and the only brown woman I was the first brown woman to have been hired in that team where I worked in the past. I think in both the teams that I worked in the past, no, in all the three teams that I've worked in the past, like across two different companies, I was the only and the first brown woman to be hired there. And so you have to work quite hard, and I just got in based on merit. Like I didn't have a referral or anything, so I know how hard I had to work and what I had to do to get half of what the other people had, and it was like a male dominated. But just because you're a girl and pretty in an industry where being pretty isn't a requirement, like as opposed to modeling or acting or something, it doesn't put you at if anything, it puts you at a disadvantage, because some people look at you and think you have what you have because of the way you look. So it's not that I was bullied for it or anything, but some men were really mean to me because they thought that I didn't have the skills or the merit to get where they were. That's a different facet of being pretty or whatever, right? But now, the real crux, the crucifix, the nucleus of the episode is that I now am turning 30. I have now spent a decade as being kind of pretty and not ugly, basically. And I like it. I am finally coming to terms with it that when someone tells me you look good, I'm like, thanks. I don't think of it as a prank. In fact, I like the way my hair looks, right? And my husband, he's really sweet. He's always like, hey, you look good. And I'm like, oh, thanks. And sometimes I tune it out because it's like, oh, whatever. I don't want to be told that I look good by a guy. Ugh. I want to be told I look good by a woman. And sometimes when I was at some woman at the security or someone at the coffee shop or I don't know, a bookstore once told me, you look really nice, you have good eyebrows. I'm like, thank you, that's nice. And then I say something back. It's a nice interaction. I love being told that. But me liking what I see in the mirror, and I like my lion's mane hair. And back in the day, I worked in the clean room, so I was in this hazmat suit, like everything covered, my hair was tight in a bun. And so once you take the hazmat suit off after the clean room session is done, I would often just untie my hair and leave it like that. It's flowing, right? And this friend of mine used to say, oh, the lion's mane is back. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. So that was nice. I like having fluffy hair. So I like what I see in the mirror. And I know that there is some level of fortune and luck there, that my features are harmonious or they make sense or whatever. But I don't think of that as good or like it's just what it is, right? But now that I'm aging and my eyes are scratchy and my skin breaks out just as much, even though I'm entering my 30s, I'm not as perfect as I thought I was. In fact, if anything, I might have kids in the future and then I will not have a good body or whatever. Like my beauty is going to deteriorate. That's how it is. I don't care about the Botox. I don't care about what the industry says. I care about not being bullied. Because as a child, the one thing that Indian aunties used to bully me on, my relatives, the aunties down the street, my neighbors, everyone, the mothers of my classmates, they used to take my looks and they used to tear it apart like vultures. Now they cannot do it anymore because it's not as bad anymore. And if I age, if I lose my beauty, if I lose the way my features are and I get wrinkly skin and I get dark spots that are eternal or my hair turns grayer, people are going to nitpick it just the way they used to when I was a child. I have outgrown that and I have known what it was like to not care because all I cared about was academic validation. You know what it was like? This one time, I got 59 out of 60 in this science exam in 9th grade. And no one had ever gotten a 60 out of 60 or more than 58. So my science teacher, Miss Jasmine, she liked me. And she said to some of these backbencher guys who were not much interested in grades, she said, just touch her science paper. Maybe that's how you will get some marks. I was like, oh, that is power. I love that, and I that surge of power I got from tapping into my potential and scoring well in maths and science and a lot of other subjects too, but mainly maths and science because that's what's celebrated in India. I loved it. Back in the day, you used to submit your unit test or midterms or whatever, and the teacher used to take home the papers And a few weeks later, the teacher, depending on how she had time to correct and grade the papers, would come in with that stack. And when she came in with the stack, people knew like, we are getting the grades now. A lot of the times, what we used to have is like 4 rows of 10 or something, 10 benches or 6 or 8 benches or something, and between each row were our sack bags full of books, and beside or in between these two sack bags were our lunch boxes, because we used to get like snacks and lunch. And so a lot of the times there was barely any space to walk between these rows because it was crowded with all of our bags. Now, this is hierarchical and I don't exactly stand for it, but that's all I had. So it's my account of my story. Back then, the teacher, almost any teacher, she would say out the names of the paper as she's giving them out. And again, this is not something I condone anymore. But back then, they used to arrange the paper based on who scored the highest and who scored the lowest, right? So everyone in the class, for the most part, would know who scored highest. The teacher, depending on how decent she was, would not call out the names of the person after the first 5 were done. She would just call out roll numbers, and we didn't always know who was who. But the names, the first 5 names, a lot of the times people would just know when the teacher walked in, oh, it's me. I'm the one who's going to go first, and they would clap for me. And that was power, more than I've ever known before. So what these people used to do, and sometimes these backbencher funny guys, like the class clowns, they were very nice to me, because I used to sometimes like tell them answers during the exam, because what do I care? I would just want you to score well, right? And so they used to like take a sneak peek, and they used to look at me, haha, tu hi first hai. Like, you are the first. So everyone, without any prompting, used to clear the sack bags and the lunchbox bags so that I would have space to walk through the rows like it's a red carpet event, because everyone knows the teacher is going to call out my name first. That is what it was like, and everyone used to clap for me. So I didn't care that I was ugly growing up, because this is what I had. And again, not everyone gets that, because not everyone comes, the first or the second or the third in a class. Only few people get that. But I had that, and I held on to it. And I've always wanted to do something good with my intelligence or creativity. I've done some good work in the clean room with my intelligence, and I've loved it. And now that I'm not allowed to, I'm trying to do something with my creativity instead. But my looks were not part of it. It's never been an advantage. The only advantage I've had when I turned pretty, I guess, is that Indian aunties in particular stopped bullying me. And now that I age, I am so aware of the fact that my body, my arms and legs that work properly are fragile. Like, I could step wrong and I will send shooting pains through my leg because I haven't stretched well. My neck from a sudden movement could get spasms, and my skin is not going to be as tight, and it's just, I'm not going to be as pretty as I age. Somewhere, this desperate need to not be bullied has turned into me as an identity, that I like being pretty. And at first I thought, I'm just vain. I'm just vain like everyone else out there. I like being pretty because it's an unfair advantage I have. But it takes a lot for me to say it, but it's more than that for me. It's not about the Botox, and it's not about the industry convincing us that you have to wear makeup to look professional, or that you have to have pressed hair and not curly hair to look more. No, it's not about that. It's about the fact that I don't want to feel the bad parts of what it was like as a child, because I have outgrown that. It's not that I used up all my strength to not care about the way Indian aunties treated me. It's just that I now don't want to have to excavate the little strength I have every day to grit my teeth and make myself into a shield that and turn my skin into thicker skin, so that I don't care about what these people say about my appearance, or they still comment on my dark circles, or they still comment on how my hair is frizzy, because by the way, it is a little curly in places and straight in other places. I can't help it, and sometimes it curls depending on the weather and how I wash it. It has never dried the same way twice. So yes, it's a little frizzy, and some people ask me, "Have you not showered, or why do you look like that, or what is wrong with you?" The more I grow up, the more I'm terrified of experiencing that again, and I just need to say it out loud. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to brace myself for how it's going to turn out. But I all I know is I like what I see in the mirror and I desperately want to hold on to it. And it's slowly becoming part of my identity. I don't like it, but that's how it is.